right. Testnet check-in. Saw the issue at the very beginning of today on the Xenon testnet. Is everything all right there? We seem to be having some sort of difficulty indexing the chain.
Yeah, I think Jay Wiley had made some change to the Bitcoin node that the Xenon miner was talking to. I don't know how exactly or what effect that it had, but sort of what I observed was that the Stacks tip height was stuck at, I think, 689 blocks for a while. And then I spun up a miner this morning. And then I think at some point the Xenon miner switched to the chain that my miner was building on. And so now, for example, if you look at the Xenon miner, it is making progress, but it's reporting a of 603 or 604. So I don't know exactly what that means. Like, it seems like there was certainly a fork and maybe a reorg in the Stacks chain, but I haven't looked at if there was a corresponding fork in the Bitcoin chain or just what happens. So it would be useful if someone can just take a look at it, at least if we understand what had happened. But that's what I observed.
Yeah, that's bizarre. I guess we could. So I mean, when you I'm not sure if you noticed this, but when you downloaded and started up your Xenon miner, did you notice it fetching blocks? I'm trying to figure out, like, did a reorg happen, or did your miner just pick up where it left off? Like, your node didn't reorg the chain; it just started building on top of whatever the last block the Xenon miner built, right?
Yes. Yeah, and yeah, I wasn't. I mean, it started with a clean on-disk state. I wasn't trying to, like, the working directory was not set. And the Bootstrap node was still set to the Xenon miner. So, but like I said, the Xenon miner just a few hours ago was reporting a chain tip of 689. So I don't quite know, like, what state my miner picked up from it and how it got to the current tip height. But I do have full debug logs if someone wants to investigate, and I can poke at them later as well.
And so the Xenon miner also had its Stacks tip height go down, right?
Now it did, yeah. So when I started my miner, Xenon miner, for some time was still showing 689, and then at some point it started tracking my miner.
Okay.
But the chain tip shrank.
Yes.
Yes. Yeah.
I wonder if there was a Bitcoin reorg.
That's what I was getting at, that like something has happened, and just I would like to understand what went on there.
I can investigate that today. So
yeah. All right, thank you.
Is there anything else with the testnet?
No, I think the rest of the stuff is just we need to push some documentation updates and some CNAME changes on our end. But outside of that, I haven't seen like any other issues on Xenon.
Cool. Let's talk about our blocking items here. How are we doing on the cost calculation voting contract?
The voting contract's coming along well. There's not all that much left to do other than kind of testing it, and I'll have to do some code review with Aaron and maybe Ludo at some point. But yeah, it's coming along. I'm working on the. Oh, sorry.
No, go ahead.
I was just going to say I'm working specifically on the withdrawal functionality now, so you can like withdraw stacks that you deposit into the contract when you vote.
I'm a little confused. Is voting happening with Stacks tokens?
Yeah. So the current thought that Aaron and I are, well, yeah. So we kind of arrived at this conclusion that Stacks holders would need to vote with Stacks tokens, and then for a vote to be successful, a certain percentage of the liquid Stacks would need to be committed to the vote, and then miners have veto power. And that's kind of what we think is like a good kind of way to balance the voting between miners and Stacks holders.
I see.
Yeah.
Do you, so at the act of voting, they have to deposit their tokens into the voting contract, or can they just do like a coin vote where you just keep a counter of number of tokens each person's committed to it?
They deposit tokens into the contract and in exchange receive a fungible token that's kind of representative of the deposit that they can exchange back for their tokens.
So we're looking at like what this voting system really looks like, assuming miners don't veto it, is a sufficient amount of the liquid stacks has to be deposited into this contract.
Yes, I think that is what we're thinking right now. Aaron, is that what you had in mind as well, or have I been
Yeah.
misinterpreting?
No, yeah, that's like definitely what I had in mind. And the rationale for this, as opposed to like just like a simple coin vote, is that otherwise we would need to do something like tainting coins
True.
so that they're not used to vote twice. And I think that has, yeah, that has like far-reaching implications, I think.
But this would mean that if you want to vote, you can't stack.
That's correct.
You can't spend them at all, really.
Yeah, you can't do anything with them. Like you're depositing them while you vote. But the idea is that these votes would be rare and not particularly short-lived. Like these votes are trying to change the entire cost structure of the network. Like I don't think we should be trying to optimize to make these painless.
You really, because if you stacked and you stacked for like 10 reward cycles, the vote would need to be like way ahead of time so you can let people unstack their.
Yeah, that's a good question. What's the time horizon for a vote? Can it be at least as long as the maximum number of reward cycles?
Yeah, I'm not entirely sure what the time horizon should be, but I feel like we can, like that parameter is kind of easily modifiable, so we can kind of decide what that should be and then just set it, right?
But you have to consider the cost of, or the lost cost opportunity for stackers if they want to vote. Mm-hmm. So that's a very expensive proposition.
Yeah, but I mean, it's not just opportunity cost of stacking. Like you're losing the opportunity cost of using your stacks in general.
Yeah,
for as long as you vote.
I don't think the incentives are aligned.
Oh, I think they're exactly aligned. Like this should be a hard thing to do. Like we're talking about changing the fundamental nature of the blockchain. It should be very difficult to do.
Yeah. I think that the only alternative to this would be exclusive miner voting, I think. Like I don't think that we can have a voting setup where stacks holders are able to vote without locking up their stacks for some stretch of time.
I like this. So this idea appeals to me over just a bare miner vote because it really makes it hard for mining cartels to exert power without also accumulating a bunch of stacks of their own and becoming like the lords of the system, really.
Yeah. I think it gives kind of like almost a pressure valve, I think, to miners, but yeah.
Sounds good. I would be in favor of making it so that it could take on the order of like a quarter for a vote to take effect. Like to make it so that you do have a chance to unstack your stacks and apply them, but like they have to stay locked up, or like the threshold for a cost change has to be sustained over 90 days or something like that. I can see the appeal of that. I mean, that gives everyone, like wallet developers, core developers, network operators, miners, etc., a long period of time to prepare for this change.
Okay. Yeah. I'm not sure. Like, I think these are ultimately going to just be kind of constants that we could change and tweak. So yeah, maybe we should put a pin in this discussion for now.
Yeah, let's go ahead and put this on GitHub and we can talk about it there. But this date here, November 30th, this is no longer valid. Is this going to be like later this week, next week, do you think?
Yeah, I think that date was like a little bit optimistic. I was kind of thinking that I would have a PR up kind of early to mid this week, and I still feel like that's on track. But yeah, probably not going to be today.
Okay, I'll just put December 4th then here.
Okay.
I think that's Friday. There's a PR for this. Is this ready? Has this been merged yet, Aaron?
No, I think it's still waiting on one more peak.
All right. Initial cost function determination, not started still?
Yeah, not started. I had said in the mainnet stand-up that I might start on that this week. But it's kind of like thinking about this more, as Ludo mentioned, I think the last time we talked about this, this is almost something like we could consider for past the December 15th sort of like code complete date, because really this is about setting constants.
Mhm. Yeah, I agree. This is
Yeah.
like we can put whatever numbers we put in here, the code's going to work. We just need to know what the numbers are.
Right. So maybe I think we should still push this off until we've addressed all this other stuff.
That's fair. Cost contract validation pass, PR is still open, or is that merged now?
Yeah, that PR is open.
Still need one more reviewer, or what's the status of this?
I don't think it has any reviews. I think it's marked as draft. So the idea, I think, with this PR,
here, right?
yeah, that's the one.
Okay.
So the idea with this PR is just that I would keep it open until I'm ready to like integrate it a little bit with the cost voting contract.
I see. So we'll merge that first, and then we'll merge this one.
Yeah, probably. I think that there might be a world in which like this could be merged against cost voting contracts in a draft state, just because the API might be unchanged.
Sounds good.
Yeah, Aaron, I think the cost voting contract API is like kind of fleshed out. The only thing that I'm unsure of is like what the ideal kind of return types are for some of the functions. So maybe we should have a conversation about that.
Yeah, cool. In that case, yeah, I'll probably unblock on this.
Cool. I saw your PR open for block limit and block fill specification, but per the other conversations we've had, is that still applicable considering we're going to do a first fee auction?
No, so yeah, I think it's no longer applicable. So maybe the to do here is to like update the relevant issues and then just close this PR.
Okay. Poison microblock processing, PR is open, but I discovered over the long weekend that there's a logical inconsistency in the way in which we do microblock mining. The act of mining microblocks right now, because each microblock is not given its own Marf trie, but rather a single microblock stream shares a Marf trie, the microblock mining logic is really coarse grained. When we drop the microblock miner structure, for example, we roll back the entire Clarity block, which drops all of the incremental mining work we've done on the stream during the miner's tenure. This is a problem because, and the way I discovered this is because, because a microblock miner is constructed from the Stacks chain state's unconfirmed state, the act of mining a microblock and then dropping the miner invalidates the unconfirmed state's underlying trie, leading to a runtime panic the next time somebody tries to query something against the unconfirmed chain tip. I've been experimenting with different ways to deal with this, but I have not yet fixed this issue. And again, the underlying problem is that when you mine a microblock, we need to be able to roll back just that microblock and not the entire state trie for that microblock stream. But that last thing might have to wait for a separate PR. Because it might be good enough just to do like a rollback everything and then reapply everything, even though it's a quadratic time complexity. Does that make sense, Aaron? Like maybe there's a way to
Yeah,
optimize
that
this.
makes sense. Because like the Marf, just like the Marf data structure is not idempotent, I suppose. Like if you add and drop a key from the Marf try, like,
Well, you can't drop a key, so.
right, you can't drop a key. Like you may have like promoted all sorts of different things. Like the structure is mutated, right?
Yeah.
Um,
It could be the case that that there is no rollback operation available, and we would just need to structure the miner so that, and we do this anyway. Like one way we could deal with this is once you mine a microblock, that's tantamount to like mining the block, rolling it back, and then applying it, which is what we do right now anyway. Like you mine a microblock and then you just apply it to your local chain state.
right.
So we could just just not drop it in the first place.
Yeah.
I'll keep playing around with this, but until we can stop the runtime panics, at least this PR should not be merged.
Yeah.
Pay forward Coinbase and event of missing sortition. I just saw your PR. I'll try to review it today.
Cool. And ultimately merging this will be blocked similarly on the Poison microblock PR because it's based off the Poison microblock PR.
Thanks. I did not see that. Anchored block hash dependent on POX information. This is not started. I'm going to try to tackle this once the Poison microblock PR is in.
Cool.
On-chain BNS implementation. We have the PR. I think there are still some outstanding comments on it though.
Yeah, I think I still need to remove, like address one of your feedback where like you want to move the trigger of the attachment system. So yeah, I have one feedback left to address.
Okay, I'll just bump the date on this. Stacks vesting implementation. Is this kind of what, Matt, is this kind of like what you opened today with the chainstate.txt that we're statically loading in?
So no work was done on the Clarity contract that I think you originally subbed in.
Okay, but this is just the act of loading in the, can you actually just tell us more about that PR just so I can know how to frame it here?
Yeah, so actually Ludo started it and did some of the work to load in data at the actual Clarity transaction level. So this PR builds off that initial work to embed the chainstate.txt file that's exported from the Python code base. So it loads that and then iterates through all of the stacks address pairs and also the vesting pairs and feeds it into those transactions, those Clarity transactions.
Sounds good. So it's instantiating all of the vesting tables and such, which will then have to be consulted every time you process a block.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so.
Cool. Sounds good.
There might be something to know. I think there was some initial conversation about maybe trying to load some of this data directly without going through the Clarity VM. Or maybe that was referring to name data, but right now it's each entry, and there's about 500,000 if you combine all of them, runs a Clarity transaction. So there's definitely like a pretty big performance penalty from that. But ultimately, I think we might need that because like we'll be able to generate things like pseudo transaction receipts and stuff that we can emit to the sidecar. I think it builds up like the right like Genesis hash to share. Yeah, I'm not really sure.
The act of introducing new tokens through vesting, I think should lead to a state root update, because then you can query, you can get proofs that your tokens got bumped from the state root. what that means is that even if we didn't run this through the Clarity VM, you would still be doing most of the operations the Clarity VM would be doing in the first place. Because that would, you would still, like as you point out, need to be generating transaction receipts for the sidecar. You would still need to be doing MARF operations for storing the new balance. Whether it happens in Clarity or not, I think is, I don't know. I'm skeptical that it's the main limiting factor, but I mean, happy to be proven wrong.
Okay. Yeah, that all sounds about right to me. What I was thinking.
All right, cool. Updating the Coinbase schedule. This is this the one that Munib proposed that's now opened as a PR?
Yeah. So it's part of the same PR. It just sets it to like 1,000 for the first 2 years, 500. Yeah.
Oh, okay. This is part of the PR from that does the pay forward.
Yep.
Got it. In this last issue here, update RustQLite to the latest. This closes out some CVEs in RustQLite. It's not been started yet, but I don't think it's that challenging of a work. We can do it after December 15th, potentially. Because it's not consensus breaking, or at least it shouldn't be consensus breaking. Cool. Any questions, comments, concerns on mainnet blocking work guidance before we go to the board? All right. Let's go through the board. Alrighty. So yeah, we just talked about this. We're not yet sure if we're going to close this PR because we're not using block fill any longer. But I do think we will need to have execution costs of some kind of scalar though, Aaron, right?
No.
No.
Because like the way that the block limit is just like any dimension.
That's right. Yeah.
And so long as nodes only care about like whether or not a block fits under the limit, they don't need to do any scalar calculation. A miner might want to do this at some point to make decisions about which transactions to include, but probably not. If they're super sophisticated, they'll probably just use the multidimensional optimization.
If we ever do go back, if we ever do implement the the second highest bid auction, we might just consider doing auctions on each of the individual dimensions instead of trying to turn it into a block fill, since we're going to have to do a greenfield project for this anyway.
Yeah, I agree.
Review in progress. We just talked about this. This is Matt's PR. This just got opened. Let's see. I think we talked about almost all of these. Is there any movement on this PR, Pascal? RPC call, public functions read only?
No, I've been working on the mining. Maybe we could put it in backlog.
Okay.
For now, I don't know, because the test to write probably just a couple of days of work to try to get a test to test the checkpoint unwind, but that hasn't been my priority.
Okay. Any progress on 1745 and 1760?
Neither. That's still something I probably would be part of the minor work that I'm doing, but that's going to come later.
Okay.
But the quality of the chain is still, well, the worker was on Xenon, that seems to be other problem, but the quality of the chain on Krypton was still not good enough, in my opinion, to run a miner. So, because there's too many side forks.
Yeah, it's an ever-present problem. Just moving through here, things we haven't yet talked about. I'm not sure why this is in progress. I don't think this is actually in review yet. So I'll put this back into backlog.
We do have quite a few PRs in review. Well, I don't know if they're all in distinct PRs or
Yeah, some
uh,
of them are just issues.
maybe just linked issues.
But we talked about, these are all like part of mainnet blockers though. We just talked about them. This is now in review, right?
Yes, that's now in review. I think that the PR is over there, but the linked issue isn't.
And same with this one, right?
Yeah. So I guess as like as a way to maybe try to reduce the number of PRs that we currently have in review, are there any PRs that are currently in review that people are like still actively working on? And maybe we can like do this offline, but we should probably just like go through and mark them as drafts. And then everything else, like if you're a reviewer on those, try to get through the reviews, right?
That makes sense. I'm just gonna add that as a to-do here. Cool. Rest of these we already talked about as part of mainnet blockers. I like how there's a lot of parity between in progress and review in progress for our mainnet blockers. Certainly saves going through them all. New issues, disable user burn support ops. I'm just gonna, should I go ahead and assign this to you, Aaron, or should?
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
It should be pretty quick.
Yeah, I think so. And milestone can just be like this sprint.
Sure. If you can find a milestone that's not past it. Oh yeah, there they are hiding at the bottom.
Yeah. How about this issue from Friedger here, getting the wrong TX result for a contract call?
I would have to take a look at what's going on here. My initial suspicion is that this might be either the event is getting generated wrong or the Stacks Node API is unpacking.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm not sure the event is wrong, but it seems like a post condition gets triggered and you get the results of the function that triggered the post condition, not the full function. So maybe it's not finishing.
Oh, I see.
It seems weird, but because the results, I mean, it's possible the results gets the wrong result. At least that's
I
from
see.
looking at it a bit. That's what it seems to be happening, but I'm not sure why, or I haven't looked at it in detail. But
Yeah. Yeah, these links didn't work for me anymore. But yeah, if a post condition failed, then the generated event from the post condition may be causing this issue.
But there wouldn't be a value type returned, right? In a post condition failure?
I think even in a post condition failure, it returns the result of the call.
So in this call, define public, the return type is definitely a response of a response.
Yes.
So,
and that's not what you get. So that's
so this is concerning then.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, I don't know. It is what you get when you just run this though.
there's definitely some smoke. So there's some fire
Yes.
somewhere.
Something is wrong.
But the press condition triggers so that it doesn't commit. So that at least that's right. But yeah,
Yes.
the error reported is not what it seems to be or should be.
Yeah. I can try to look more into this. I suspect there might be some log data from this transaction. Might help figure out what's going on.
Okay.
I can also take it if you want, Aaron.
That's all right. I should be able to grab it.
Okay. Moving on, additional Xenon adjustment. I think this just has to do with the ways in which Xenon is supposed to boot up with respect to how the POX watchdog and the initial synchronization happen. Are we all in agreement on this, or do we need to discuss this some more?
Yes, that's good to me.
Okay. We can boot up Xenon nodes now though, right? Without
Yeah.
Okay. Related to this, refactoring chains coordinator with the POX sync watchdog. This is just a retelling of the same issue, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Bitcoin wire format rigidity. I think we're all in agreement here too. Like, if we can accept different UTXO orderings in a transaction, it should still be valid, I think. Because the main concern for transaction format is the size, not the particular structure of the UTXOs within them. Do we want to try to address this after the 15th though? What do y'all think?
Yeah, I mean, this seems almost like guaranteed Stacks 2.1.
Okay.
Just because I think so, like reordering the UTXOs, that's probably a simple change, like a handful of lines. Anything else, I think, is a massive change.
Yeah, I'm kind of skeptical of trying to do signature validation ourselves. That sounds like that's yeah. It sounds like that's
Yes.
it's waiting to happen. Like, we validate something that Bitcoin doesn't, or vice versa, and that leads to problems.
Right.
I mean, is there any compelling reason to even try and incorporate this in Stacks 2.0? I mean, why isn't this
Right.
obviously 2.1 or later?
Yeah. So, right. I think that this is very much 2.1 or later. I think that the compelling reason here would be that, like, as a miner, doing UTXO chaining can be a little bit painful.
Yeah, but we can potentially make the tools at least to reduce that pain.
Yeah.
All right, 2.1 it is. Oops, lost my board. All right. VNS namespace price function cannot be changed after namespace reveal. So Marvin opened this. I know that there's another related issue here about potentially having a registrar contract for namespaces, but do we want to try to work on this before Stacks 2.0, or is there a way we can structure this so that we can just deal with it later?
I think that adding the method suggested by Marvin could be a quick win. Unless
that's just to have another contract implement the cost function, or
no, the only thing he wants right now is to have the ability to update the price function after the launch, so that he can keep updating the price of registering names depending on the price of the Stacks token.
I see. I mean, I'm fine with that myself. I guess like the downside risk that he also lists here is that if you create like a public namespace that's widely used, like ID, for example, it becomes a question of, should a single point of failure or a single individual have the power to change prices for everybody? I don't think that's historically how I've used namespaces, but I can see us going to a world where, like, each app might have a namespace for itself, for example. Then it makes total sense for the app developer to set name prices. I don't know. I can see this going either way. Does anyone else have any thoughts? maybe we can just talk about it offline.
Yeah.
Sounds good.
Sorry, Jude, I missed the pushback. Like, what is the downside to allowing people to do this?
So one of the, this is kind of more of a historic artifact than anything else, I guess. When we designed BNS 1.0, one of the key properties it had is that namespace prices cannot be changed, or more generally, the person who creates the namespace does not exert control over who can register names at all.
I mean, they do exert control in the initial coefficients. You're saying after the fact they don't.
Yeah, once the namespace is launched, anyone can register a name, and they do so at the prescribed price. There's no way the price can be changed later. For example, I could stop people from registering names by changing the prices to be absurdly high, and that's a failure mode for a namespace.
But there's other failures you have no control over, say like a token inflation. Suddenly the price becomes totally unrealistic for most people, and you want to be able to lower the price.
Yeah, I agree. Like the outcome has, either we do this or we don't. Like there's upsides and downsides to both. You're absolutely right, Pascal. Like the system today makes it impossible to change prices.
Or make it a parameter of the namespace. Either the price is fixed forever, or the owner can change the price, or maybe a few other variation on this. But so if you know the namespace, the owner can't change it, then that's one way. But if you know the owner can change it at any time, anyway, you decide to register a name, given the price at a given point in time, and if later someone else can't register because it's too high, they just won't, and they'll go somewhere else. Let's sort of let the market kind of decide.
That's a good idea.
Yeah, I agree with that.
How big of a change is this on top of what Ludo currently has? Like, is it a big lift to incorporate this?
I don't think so, but I think that we could maybe involve Marvin in this process and have him contributing maybe. Yeah, I don't know.
Okay. All right.
But it's not a big change. It's adding a new method, and yeah, that should be pretty straightforward.
Yeah, I'm totally fine with adding it, like as long as we just keep compatibility. Like ID, for example, could be one of the namespaces where the price does not change or something like that. But obviously any future namespace can have the ability to change it. We're going to talk about constants for BNS here. We don't have to do this maybe right now, but does anyone have any strong opinions about changing the namespace pre-order lifetime or the name pre-order lifetime or other sorts of parameters like that?
No strong feelings.
No, me neither. The other nice thing about BNS, now that we have a full smart contract system, is that if for whatever reason we don't like BNS constants later on, nothing stops us from deploying a new BNS contract later at some other address.
Right, but you would have to handle the migration and yeah.
But we can do that though. We can use @block, and we can just service queries in the new BNS contract by reading names from the old BNS contract.
But you need to bind the V2 with the V1 somehow.
Yeah, I think.
But yeah, we can.
Yeah, I think that should be doable though. So go ahead.
No, yeah, agreed.
As for backlog, P2P per reward cycle inventory refresh intervals, that's an optimization. It can be deferred until after the 15th. Stacks token locking, unlocking in Genesis block. I think this is now in progress now that we have Matt's PR, and Ludo's been working on trying to tie it into the block processing. long pending transaction. I'm not sure what we can do about this right now. It's old enough, July 8th, we might as well just close this. I know that we've had some networking fixes since then. Well, actually, it seems to be that like people keep commenting on this. I don't know.
Yeah, I think this might just be like a mega issue for long pending transactions.
The grievance issue for this.
Yeah, that's what it is. It's just an umbrella issue for whenever someone encounters a transaction that's been stuck in the mempool. I don't think like it is isolated to a specific problem that we have identified.
Okay,
Just
we'll just leave it open then. So yeah, this is still a long-standing issue. We're going to want to try to fix this by mainnet, where we can lead to a crash just due to the way that we structure transaction processing in the Clarity VM. But we've already discussed it before. We already discussed this. This is backlog and backlog. Cool. I think we ran through the whole board now. Any other comments or issues, questions, concerns on the not covered here?
Question maybe, what's the timeline for deploying a Stacks node on the working with the Bitcoin mainnet? Because I'm suspecting a good amount of work. Like I keep seeing some mainnet equal false everywhere, hard-coded with also some testnet addresses hard-coded. So yeah, I'm suspecting a good amount of work.
That's a good question. Maybe once we're happy with Xenon, we can just switch straight to doing this. Like just whenever the day comes when we feel like Xenon is working. That could be like this week. It could be December 15th. It could be after December 15th. But I kind of feel like whatever problems we have on mainnet will also be problems on Xenon. So if we fix problems in Xenon, we just make it that much easier on ourselves to deal with mainnet problems.
Yeah. Ludo, is your
I think it's orthogonal.
yeah, is your worry more about hard-coded testnet addresses that are like Bitcoin testnet addresses or like Stacks testnet addresses?
I'm not sure. I haven't looked into the details, but yeah, I think that there's an orthogonal effort, like regardless the chain is working on testnet or not. Like that, I think that we have a bunch of hard-coded mainnet equal false or testnet address usage disseminated in the code that we should that we will have to look into.
Yeah, that makes sense.
yeah, we can take this offline. I think hopefully by next week we'll be at a point where between at least Ludo, Aaron, Jude, and perhaps a few community members, there's sort of very clear things that we could split up, just like we've done in the past, with different work streams, and hopefully, one person can start focusing on the mainnet integration work.
Do we want to have a mainnet testnet at some point?
Yeah, I think we talked about it briefly. It's been on my to-do list to just put together sort of a doc that just captures like all the different ideas for testing. I think we have some in the mainnet blocker work items doc as well. So let me actually try and send that out today, and let's just accumulate all of the different ideas that we have from a testing perspective, and a mainnet testnet could be one of them. Like either way, I think like doing some sort of dry run, if we can do a dry run against mainnet, I think would be critical. If nothing else, just to verify, the imported state, the upgrade process, all of those things.
100% agree. We're going to want to test that pretty rigorously before we actually launch it for real. Any other discussion items that we need to write down here?
Looks like everyone's ready to get back to work.
Cool, 10 minutes early even. All right, I will stop sharing.
Yeah. Actually, before everyone signs off, Pascal, do you want to do an update on the miner stuff that you're working on? I think it's like 1869. I might be getting the issue number wrong. Where are you? Do you need help with anything? When can we expect a PR?
The PR is still probably long in coming, but this week I started looking at what I need for the VRF generation. I think it's just mostly just hashing of rehashing of the key. There's no complex calculations, but that's where I'm at. It has been slow, but I haven't been able to focus too much on. I've been really tired the past few weeks, so it's slow progress, but I think steady still. But there's, even if after I've got the VRF generation, it's still a lot more steps to actually be able to mine, because I'm just going to just generate a block, then that block needs to be sent to the blockchain, at least not the block, but the commit. I need to send a commit to the blockchain, and then the node needs to know how to send the block if the miner has won the. So there's still quite a few pieces left on the table.
So do you feel like you can have a PR like maybe next week, or is it like a few more weeks out?
Not this week, possibly next week if I'm able to focus this week.
Okay.
But it may be more, because every time I look, there's like possibly more stuff. But I'm hoping I can just keep some of the functionality in the node first and eventually extract more, as opposed to try to get everything in one go. So the first PR might be like a simplified miner, where the miner just can decide whether to mine a block or not, but still relies on the functionality, a lot of the functionality from the node itself. And then we can extract more later.
Okay.
Just from the perspective of a miner, that might be just enough for what they need though, to be able at least to control or decide whether they want to mine a block or not, which seems to be the first step for a miner, depending on the price, depending on where the chain is, or.
But they will have to. They need to be able to reevaluate this decision, right? Because I mean.
Right, but the first step is they decide to whether they want to mine a block or not. Then they call they grab the transactions that they want. They call the RPC call endpoint to get a block template, and then at that point they send a commit.
Right, but I guess my question is, as a miner, I probably want to reevaluate the decision of mining or not, depending on whatever is in the mempool, I guess. Like,
sure, yeah.
For one epoch, I should be able to pull multiple times the mempool and.
Because the API endpoint, the miner sends the list of transactions it wants to include in the block.
Okay.
So the miner itself will need to know what transactions are there. They can use the current mempool APIs, using from the node API, because you got the list of transactions there, or they can gather the transaction however they want. But they want also to know what the chain tip is and whether it's in a current fork or not, and these kind of things. Hopefully we can help guarantee that the miner is not going to mine in the wrong fork, so to speak. But that's external to what the basic mining capability should be initially. Because you can do a dumb miner that just at some point grabs finds that there's a new block, grabs the transactions that are currently in the mempool and generates a block. But then you can do something that is smarter than that. And also react on whatever the Bitcoin fees are and the current token prices and what have you. And also how many miners have committed lately to figure out how much to commit from the POX standpoint. I mean, there's like
lots of things.
A lot of parameters which miners, once they have that capability, can do. But that's probably out of scope from the initial thing that I've been working on, which is just the ability to decide to commit on a block and what to put in the block. The logic to decide what to put and not to put, and whether to put or generate a block, that's a different thing. But that's why we have this API.
Does that have answered your question, Luda?
Yep.
All right, anything else? I'm gonna go ahead and stop recording.